Okay, so I'm answering some more of your questions from Instagram. The first one is from Rob, and it says, because of the nature of science, where one needs to look for funding as opposed to having a salary like other business, you're often competing against other people and institutions for research money. As a result, you need to have a proactive and sometimes an aggressive approach to survive in science. My question is, would you agree with that? And if so, do you think anyone can succeed in science, especially a person with a generally more reserved nature? So this is pretty much true, that being a scientist and being in academia nowadays is not just about the science, it's about a lot of other things. It's about how you pitch for grant money, it's how you communicate with other researchers. It's really quite similar to other businesses in that sense, that there is a lot of competition and you sort of can't survive as a scientist just on your own. You need to be working in groups with other people. So do I agree with that? I think it's good and bad. It's good that I think there's a more collaborative nature to work, because the kind of sort of physics that we're trying to do requires that, I believe. And there's definitely downsides into the fact that, like what I said, your science can't really speak for itself. You have to speak for your science. So it's just, there are people who are excellent physicists, but they won't succeed in the academic environment because of the way it's set up, because it favours, I think, people that are good at networking and good at socialising. Do I think someone could succeed if they're more reserved? Like I said, if they don't try to make those connections with other people, then no. But you can be reserved and still be good at talking to people. You don't need to be especially bubbly or something like that. You just need to be smart at talking to other people, staying in touch with other people, and recognizing when someone might have interesting work that they might be interested in what you do, and you can set up some kind of collaboration. So you can be reserved, but you still have to be on your toes in terms of socializing with others. Another question from Rob. If you were suddenly appointed the global science president and could change anything you wished about the current system on a whim, would you, or would you leave it as it is? There's definitely things I don't like about the current science system. I guess if I had this power, I would do one thing, and that was to increase funding in science, because I think that alone would probably make a big difference to these feelings of competitiveness and business mindset that we feel. Is because science is in general really poorly funded, and it means that it's quite cutthroat in some sense. There's a lot of people that want to be in this space, and not many jobs can actually be supported. Another thing I would do was to put a focus on like teaching or education based jobs in academia. So what I mean is that at the moment a lot of people are employed in the academic or university system to do research, and then teaching is kind of this obligation added on to that, where it sort of feels like that person isn't really interested in teaching or doesn't want to be doing that. It's just this obligation they have to do to get their research money. And as a result, I've had some really poor lecturers over the years, and it's people that you could almost tell they didn't want to be lecturing these courses at university. They just wanted to throw some notes at us and get back to doing their research. And I think there should be roles for both kinds of people. I think maybe those people should be allowed to spend more time on research if that research is really good. And I think there should be some roles for people who are actually passionate about educating university students in a subject, maybe doing a little bit of research, but actually being recognized as being a primarily education position. I think that would really increase the quality of teaching that goes on in universities. Which do I think is the most beautiful physics phenomena? probably know this theorem and understanding physical phenomena by looking for symmetries. What is your favourite form of energy? Without any justification, gravitational potential energy. Which is your preferred theory? Loop quantum gravity or string theory? Well, hopefully these are two sides of the same coin. Is there any difference between studying applied physics and physics? Well, I guess yes. Some unis do offer the applied physics option, and I guess it's just more broad. It's probably more like an engineering degree in the sense that what you're studying is probably more based around the physics ideas that are useful in industry. Like most of physics is useful in industry, but if you're doing applied physics, you might be using simpler maths, maybe a bit more of a simple physics. You probably don't need to understand some of the complexities of space-time or something like that. And what you're learning is probably for someone who has goals to go and work in industry straight after they've done their studies, which is still a great thing to do, but it's probably not geared towards the academic research kind of physics. Any book or other resources to study essential physics for everyone? Other resources, I would really recommend Veritasium's channel here on YouTube. Even with like a physics degree, I still learn things from his videos all the time, and he covers really quite an in-depth way actually interesting concepts in physics. In terms of books for everyone, I know some of the first popular science physics books I read that gave me sort of a broad understanding of what's going on in the field were books by Marcus Chown. Books like We Need to Talk About Kelvin, so that's something I remember enjoying. I'd probably recommend it. Did you fail a subject? If yes, how did you manage to succeed? I never failed a subject at university. The lowest grade I ever got in a course in undergrad was a B, which is like around 75%. And at the time I was distraught by that grade. In hindsight, I probably had way too high expectations of what failure actually was. And I think the reason I did was because the people I surrounded myself with, my friends and the people I studied with, also had really high expectations, and they were all aiming to get always above like 90%. And so I'd probably say if you've failed a course or you feel like you're doing worse than you can or than you want to, probably change the people that you surround yourself with, because it can make a huge difference. If you're studying alone and not doing well, try to find some people to study with. And if you've been studying with people that are maybe bringing you down because they don't have the same ambitions as you and they're not aiming for the same grades you are, then don't do group projects with them. Try to get the people that are aiming for over 90% and try to work with them. It kind of changes your whole mindset and your work ethic and everything, so that's probably one of the best things you can do. Did you even ask, do I really want to be a physicist when things got tough? If so, what kept you motivated? This is something that I've not only asked myself in the past, but I always ask myself still. I think physics is really hard, and often what you're working towards can always seem really far away, and that can leave you feeling like you're not good enough, or that, I don't know, that it's not worth it. I think in a sense there's not much instant gratification in physics. So to stay motivated, what I sort of think about is why I'm doing physics in the first place, and often I might come across like a YouTube video or something that reminds me, and it's the idea that physics is tackling fundamental questions, and I feel like to work in physics and to work on expanding human knowledge is one of the nicest things you can do, because you're not just working, you're contributing in a fundamental way to like the history of human life. I sort of see it in that way, that if I was to leave physics and do some other job, maybe that I would consider mundane, that's just for money, or that I might be good at but I don't see any sort of fundamental purpose behind, I feel like I wouldn't be fulfilled, and that I'd want to work on something as exciting and interesting as physics. I really want to study physics and change to a STEM career, but I also feel quite ridiculous because I'm 41, a law graduate from Brazil, married, and parent of a child. Do you think it's too late for me? I've had a few variations on this question before, and it's really hard for me to say. I'm generally quite optimistic in the idea that you can study physics at any age and any background, and that you should try and do what you're passionate about. Having said that, physics is hard, and if you're coming from a different background to other people, whether that's you haven't studied physics for ages or you've got a busy life elsewhere, you're just going to make it harder for yourself. So I'd always recommend doing what you want to do, but you're going to have to realize that it may be harder for you. And you should probably think about what you want to get out of doing a physics degree. So a lot of people go into a physics degree thinking that they're going to win a Nobel Prize, go into academia, be a professor for the rest of their life. And sure, some people do, but lots don't. And you can go and work in industry, you can go and work in teaching, there's lots of other things you can do, but you might not be living up to your expectations of where studying physics would take you. So if you're going back to study physics late in life, you should probably think about why you actually want to do that, what career you see yourself ending up on. So if you want to do it because you want to go into the uni system, become a professor and do your own independent research, know that that's probably a really quite a long road, much more than the 3 or 4 year undergrad degree. If you just want to do the degree for interest and then maybe switch into a slightly more STEM career in industry or something else, sure, that's fine, but just be, I guess, realistic with your expectations for after doing the degree. I don't think it's too late to do the physics degree at any age. I know people who have done it really quite late in life. I studied with them and they were great. But yeah, just realize that the degree might be fine, but what are you going to do after that? Some of my other questions here are things like explain quantum entanglement in detail. That's something I'd love to try and do, but it's probably a bit too ambitious for this Q&A. So I'm sorry if I haven't answered your questions from Instagram. Try and type a reply. And I really do appreciate the amount of comments I got. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.